Hello to you. I do hope you're well. Welcome to this teaching tip for classroom excellence. Today we're looking at warm/strict, which is one of Doug Lemov's techniques from Teach Like a Champion. And we'll be looking at how you can be simultaneously warm and strict as a classroom teacher. And we'll also be looking at why it is important to be both warm and strict in your classroom. So let's have a look at what this is all about and how you can apply it. So Lemov is very clear that as a teacher, you don't need to choose, and you actually should not choose, between being warm and strict. So they are not two things in conflict with each other, where you have got to choose which one you're going to be. Instead, Lemov says that you need to be simultaneously warm and strict. And he says that being both warm and strict at the same time will send a message of high expectations, caring, and respect to your students. And he says that we need to show students that having high expectations of someone is part of caring for and respecting them. And he said, we have to make it really clear to students that we have high expectations of them because we care about them. And then the reason that we hold them to account and we insist that they do meet our high expectations is because we care about them. And the way that I frame this to students in my classroom is that I have high expectations of them because I have high aspirations for them. And so it is my job, it is my duty that they make the maximum progress possible and fulfill their full potential. And so it's because I know what they're capable of, and it's because I know that they have so much potential that I am really strict and I am really firm when it comes to meeting my classroom expectations. And so, this is the idea that caring for someone, as Lemov says, involves having high expectations of them and then calling them out and holding them to account if they're not being their best and if they're not meeting those expectations. And a great way of wording this actually is if you do have to issue a detention, because Lemov says some teachers make the mistake of saying that even though I care about you, or even though I like you, I still have to give you the detention. And he says that is a big, big mistake. He says that actually we need to say that it is because I care about you that you must serve the consequence for being late and therefore have a detention. He says that actually ensuring that there are consequences when expectations aren't met is an important way of showing that you care. And it's an important part of being warm. And so, we must always remember that having high expectations and then holding students to them is a way of showing them that we care. And so he says we should be warm, funny, caring, and positive, while simultaneously being strict, firm, consistent, and relentless. And one way I like to think of this is that you need to separate the student from their behavior. So you've got the student, the person, and then you've got the choice they've made, the mistake they've made, the behavior that they've displayed. And we have to separate the two. We don't say to the student, you are inconsiderate. We say, your behavior was inconsiderate, or the choice that you've made was inconsiderate, and by doing that, we can maintain that positive relationship with the student while calling out, addressing, and rectifying any mistakes that they may have made. And that is really important because, again, it's about signaling to students that having high expectations and holding someone to account for meeting them is part of caring for them. So let's have a look at how you can make warm/strict effective in your classroom. One really important way of doing this is to explain your instructions and your corrections. So, when you do give students an instruction, or if you do correct them on something they've done wrong, either academically or behaviorally, it's really important to explain why, to give them that reason so they can understand the rationale behind the instruction or the correction that you've made. So, for example, you know, Priya is doing something that is disturbing the lesson or causing a distraction. And you might say, Priya, we don't do that in this classroom because it keeps us from making the most of our learning time. So it's, you know, about that positive framing, which is another of Lemov's TLACs, and it's about helping students learn from their mistakes and move forward. So always explain to students why you're doing what you're doing. You know, if you're going to be giving them a detention for being late or not handing in the homework, explain why. You know, explain why it's important that you are on time, that you are completing your homework on time. So always be explaining, because that really helps to build those positive relationships. Because again, it signals to students that you have high expectations of them because you have high aspirations for them. It's also important, as I mentioned, to distinguish between behaviours and people. So, for example, say your behaviour is inconsiderate rather than you are inconsiderate. So, you know, you have faith in the student and you have high aspirations for the student. And so that is why you are calling out those inconsiderate behaviours, if I want to extend the example I've used there. So it's really important that you're separating the student, the person, from the behaviour. And that links in with the idea of choice, which I think is very powerful for motivating your students. You know, if you can say, in that situation, you made the wrong choice, because you separate the person from the behaviour. And that allows students to think, okay, I'm going to make the right choice next time. So it, you know, it instills that self-responsibility. It reminds them that they have autonomy. And that is really helpful for motivating students and for helping them to learn from their mistakes and move forward in a really positive way. And then finally, it's important to demonstrate that consequences, so, you know, when you have to issue a consequence after a negative behaviour, are temporary. Yeah, it's really important that we're not holding grudges, because, you know, we are going to hold the line, we are going to follow the behaviour policy, but we're not then going to hold it against our students, you know. So we need to show students that when they have dealt with the consequence of a mistake, so when they have sat the detention, for example, it is immediately in the past. You are not going to hold that over them. You're not going to hold it against them. You know, the next lesson is a brand new start. Hopefully, they've had time to then reflect on why they had to sit the detention, and so they can learn from it. But what you're not going to do is then hold it against them and hold a grudge. You are going to smile and greet them naturally with enthusiasm and positivity. And, you know, that will signal to them that the new lesson is a new start. So after you've given a consequence, get over it quickly. Yeah, don't hold a grudge. And again, that reflects the idea of being warm/strict and separating between a behaviour and your student. So hopefully that's given you some insight and some ideas about being simultaneously warm and strict as a teacher. And again, it is that key idea of having high expectations and holding students to them because you care about them and you want the best for them. And it is important that we don't think you have to pick between being a strict teacher and being a warm, caring, funny teacher. But actually, they fall under the same bracket. And that bracket is being an excellent teacher who wants the very best for their students. If you've got any thoughts or ideas on warm/strict as well, please let me know in the comments below. Always great to hear from you. But until next time, thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.